welcome. Today we are going to be talking about suicide prevention. Did you know that every 40 seconds someone dies from suicide? Somewhere around the world, someone just took their own life. So let's have the conversation. Let's talk about suicide prevention. But what exactly is suicide? Suicide is the act of deliberately killing oneself. Risk factors for suicide include a mental disorder, especially depression, and neurological disorders, cancer, being sick overall, a debilitating illness. Every year, almost 1 million people die from suicide, and up to 86% of these persons who die are actually in lower or middle income countries. Suicide is one of the three leading causes of death for young people and account to up to 20% of deaths in women who are postpartum. So this is a very, very important and far-reaching problem. During this conversation, we're going to talk about some of the myths related to suicide, some of the signs you can look out for. We'll talk about who exactly it is that suffers from suicide and who to reach out to if you need some help. And if someone around you needs help, what are those signs to look out for? C.S. Lewis said that mental pain is less dramatic than physical pain, but it is more common and also more hard to bear. That's why with this conversation, we're going to dispel some myths about the suicidal brain so that we can take real action to help those around us who need the help. So let's look at that very first myth that we're going to be squashing today. Myth number one: people say that talking about suicide increases the chance that a person will act on it. Absolutely not. Talking about suicide does not increase the risk of someone using it as a solution. In fact, it reduces the risk. It reduces suicidal ideation. What it actually does is that talking about suicide improves mental health related outcomes and reduces the likelihood that someone will take their own life, and instead it increases the likelihood that someone will seek treatment. The second myth that we're going to debunk this evening is that people who talk about suicide are just seeking attention. Ladies and gentlemen, everyone who says they feel like killing themselves should be taken seriously. Everyone who says they're suicidal must be taken seriously. Let me say that again. Everyone who mentions committing suicide must be taken seriously. Because yes, it is always a cry for help. It means that something is wrong somewhere in their life, and if they have said it to you, it means that you're identified as a person that can help with the solution. When you hear someone mention suicide in that way, don't be afraid to ask some of the tough questions. Don't be afraid to ask, hey, how long have you been feeling this way? Is there anything I can do to help? What do you need right now? How can I help you? Another myth that we are about to squash is that suicide cannot be prevented. Suicide can be prevented. It can always be prevented. It may be unpredictable, but not unpreventable. Many of the persons who contemplate suicide, friends, they often experience intense emotional pain. Do you remember the quote we just shared from C.S. Lewis? Mental pain is hard to bear. These persons experience hopelessness, may have a negative view of their life or their future. Suicide is a combination of a lot of different factors. Many things may be happening in this person's life, but it is preventable. Together, we can all take action to give someone hope in their life. The next myth that many persons like to throw out there is that people who take their own lives are selfish, that they're cowards or weak. No, we will not join the gang of people who continue to say that people who take their own lives are selfish. Instead, let us begin to understand the suicidal brain a little bit more. The suicidal brain is not a rational brain. The suicidal brain instead sees ending their own life as a solution to the problems that they are currently facing or the problems that their loved ones may be facing. So it is not selfish. It is seen as a solution. What we can do is remind our friends and our loved ones and those we come in contact with that their presence on this earth is valuable, that there is a purpose for their life. The next myth that we're about to debunk today is that teenagers and college students are most at risk for suicide. Ladies and gentlemen, someone that I really loved while he was living was Anthony Bourdain. Anthony Bourdain killed himself in a luxury suite in Paris. He was a food and travel vlogger, writer, journalist, media person. He was not a teenager or a college student. Robin Williams also died from suicide. Not a teenager or a college student. Kate Spade, not a teenager or a college student. And the list goes on. Suicide, the suicidal thought ideation, it's not a respecter of persons. Anyone can fall victim to those thoughts without the support and the framework behind to keep them on the right track. So don't judge the suicidal too much or too badly. Don't think too highly of yourself either. Remember, the suicidal mind is not a rational mind, but there is always something that you can do to help. The next myth that we're going to debunk is that therapy and medication doesn't work. Lies. Lies. Therapy and medication does work. Most times they work best when used together. Used together to treat some of the underlying conditions that may be exacerbating suicidal thoughts. What is a fact is that treatment can and does work. One of the best ways to prevent suicide is by getting treatment for mental illnesses such as depression, bipolar illnesses, or substance abuse, and learning ways to cope with problems. Treatment such as talk therapy and medication is a tool that persons can use to live their happiest and their healthiest and their best lives. Finding the best treatment, it can take some time. You may have to shop around to find a therapist that suits you, but the right treatment can greatly reduce the risk of suicide. Don't forget, if a friend or loved ones talks or behaves in a way that is a little bit sus, don't be afraid to share some tools with them that you believe will assist with this time in their lives. It is very important that as you suggest different treatment options for your friends, that you get in touch with a trained professional as quickly as possible, because someone may be so suicidal, maybe to a certain degree, that they need professional assistance to pull them from out of that rut. Your intervention may help them to see that other options are available to help them to stay alive and get treatment. So who is at risk? We busted all these myths now. Pew, 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 pew. All of the myths, them dead. Who is at risk for suicide? Who are the persons that are actually at risk? Who is vulnerable? You know, the link between suicide and mental disorders is really close and it's very well established, especially in high-income countries. Of course, many suicides seem to happen impulsively, in moments of crisis or with a breakdown in the ability to deal with the stresses of life. Maybe financial problems, relationship problems, a breakup, or something drastic, maybe pain, sudden illness. In addition, if there is any conflict, a pandemic, disasters, violence, abuse, all these things exacerbate the chances of suicide. However, suicide is also possible for absolutely anyone at all who has had a significant life moment, a change in the circumstances in one life that prove a little bit difficult to overcome. So let's look at these numbers right now. What do the numbers say? The numbers say that over 450 million people suffer from neurological disorders, and persons with neurological disorders are very, very susceptible to suicide. The numbers also say that there are over 300 million people affected by depression and over 60 million with a bipolar affective disorder. Yes, these are persons that may or may not, hopefully not, attempt suicide during their lifetimes. These are individuals that are at high risk. But there is always something that you can do to help. So here are a few signs now of persons that are suicidal that you can assist, that you can look out for, that you can give a little hope to. Number one, if your friends or your loved ones are talking about suicide, if they're making statements such as, you know what, I'm going to kill myself, I wish I was dead, I wish I was never born, I can't make it, I can't survive, I feel like I'm failing, everything is just against me, nothing is working out, me just salt day after day, time after time, everything is against me. These statements suggest hopelessness. And it means that you need to stay close to this person to encourage them so they don't fall into the trap of suicide, so they don't fall into a depressive spiral, so that you can pull them out before it gets too late. You can also provide, like I said, contact information for a trained professional, whatever works within your region, to see how you can help your friends and your loved ones to conquer suicidal thoughts. Another thing that is a sign that someone may be suicidal is if they are actively getting the means of taking their own life. What do I mean? This person has a firearm or is seeking a firearm. This person is seeking pills. They're stockpiling on pills that can take their own life. You see someone with a rope. You see someone heading toward a bridge or toward a cliffside, to an area that is popular for suicidal activity. This is a sign that that person is heading towards suicide. Another sign is that if someone is usually a very vibrant person and this person begins to withdraw from social contact and now wants to be left alone, suicidal. Someone having mood swings, being emotionally high sometimes and then suddenly emotionally low. Not just low, but like deeply discouraged, suicidal. Now mark you, these are signs that exist that say, hey, check on your friend. Doesn't necessarily mean that the person is definitely suicidal, It is just that these signs are often seen in the suicidal, so we can use them as a gauge to know whether or not a situation is getting better or worse, and what you can do. Another sign is if this friend or loved one is getting a little bit preoccupied with death. It's all they're talking about all the time. They talk about feeling trapped or hopeless. They're increasing dependence on drugs, substance abuse, alcohol, and increased dependence on that for, let's say, for a little comfort to get through everyday life, is an indication that this friend or loved one may not just be depressed, but also suicidal. Check in. If your friend is changing their normal routine, including eating or their sleeping patterns, check in. If your friend or loved one begins to do risky or self-destructive things, check in. If your friend or loved one begins to give away their belongings and start to get their affairs in order, begins to decide who will inherit which portion of their property, or maybe not even something so drastic, but they may begin to give away a favorite pair of watch or shoes or jewelry, check in. If they begin to say goodbye as if they won't ever see you again, if it's not just all right, I'll see you tomorrow or see you next week or thanks so much for coming, but an individual begins to just profoundly express their love and appreciation for you and to say goodbye as if they will never see you again, check in. If you see your friend or your loved one having personality changes, becoming severely anxious or agitated, especially coupled with all of the other warning signs I've listed, what you must do? Check in. Friends, we do have treatment options when you see these signs in your loved ones. Yes, we do. There can be some lifestyle changes made. You can suggest a healthier lifestyle with your friend, help them to stick to a diet and a meal plan that includes lots of green leafy vegetables, high fiber, and adequate protein, not too much sugar in the diet. Include, of course, the medication that I mentioned. Include vitamins and supplement to get hormones balanced and neurons working in the brain. Include psychotherapy. Call a therapist for your friend. You can even try going to the first session with them. Don't forget, if you are experiencing any of these symptoms, I am encouraging you, please talk to a professional. Reach out to others for some help and seek more mental health information. You are not alone. And if you have friends that are struggling today, reach out, remind them that they are not alone. Thank you for watching. I hope this conversation was helpful for you. Don't forget to share this video with someone that may need it. Please leave a comment below to say how you can help someone with their suicidal thoughts or mental health challenges today. I'm depending on you to be the hope that we need to save the world. Thanks for watching.